week. And this week, with the weather changing and it's starting to look a little bit like spring, I thought what we'd do is look at plants. So first of all, what I'd like you to do is to, when you think about plants, think about the parts of the plants and maybe think about naming them, but also what their function is. So I've got 2 plants here actually. So this is just one of the plants from my house, and you can see all over it, it's got different parts. If I study it closely, ooh, if I look down there, it's got something different. So what I'd like you to try and do is to label the parts of a plant. So for example, can you find where the leaves are? Can you find the stem? Can you find where the roots of a plant are? Maybe your plant has flowers too. Now mine actually doesn't, it already flowered at Christmas. So this one doesn't, and this particular plant doesn't have any flowers. So can you find those things? Why don't you pause here and see if you can find them on a plant in your house or in your garden. Right, so maybe you found something in your garden, you might have found something in your house, and hopefully you could find the leaves. So the leaves are all over this plant. This one's got some great examples of leaves. It's got these nice big leaves. You can see on this plant as well, it's clearly got a stem. Maybe you found that on your plant. And then underneath, so underneath the soil, this has got soil in, you can find the plant's roots. And you can see here the root system on this. This is actually a plant that I grew in the summer last year, and I set it off in the summer. I think I put it on Twitter actually, and I wasn't convinced it was going to work. It's an avocado. And what I did with the seed was I just put some sticks in the side, I peeled it, and I just placed it in water, and eventually it did sprout. So it's got roots, it's got a stem, and it's got leaves. So why don't you have a look and see if you can find what the jobs are of these different parts. So what their function is. What's the function of a leaf? What's the function of the stem? And maybe what's the function of the roots? Why don't you pause here? Leaves on a plant then. What's the job of the leaves on a plant? So the leaves on a plant are really, really special because they help the plant to, you know,
food.
They do help it to make food. So they help it to make food. So it's not like us when I go to the kitchen and put myself some toast in. That's making food, isn't it? No, these make food on the inside. So yeah, the leaves do make food, well done. And it's actually got a special science word, which I don't think Amelia will know, but maybe you will. So the special science word is photosynthesis. So the leaves help the plant to make food, and it's got roots. So the roots help it too. What do the roots help the plant to do you know?
Stand up.
They do actually help it to stand up. So the roots help the plant to stand up. Well, they've got another job. What else do they do? What are they doing? They're in the water there. So what else?
Get water.
They will. So they'll help the plant to get water too. Now the stem. Ooh. The stem. What's the job of the stem? Now I think this is a little bit more tricky. Do you actually know this one?
It also helps it stand up.
It does help it to stand up, yeah. So the stem also has special tubes in it too, called xylem and phloem. And those are tissues, and one of them will carry water up and one of them will carry sugar. So the xylem cells will carry water all the way up to the leaves because the leaves will need water. So that's quite important. So that's my nice plant, and it's something you can give a go this at home as well. If you're a bit like me and quite like an avocado, you might want to try it. It really works. So you just get your avocado seeds down. You just peel off it's got a little layer of skin on it. Maybe just give it a chop. I chopped mine at the bottom, and I stuck a couple of sticks in it, and I just left it in water. It took a long time. It wasn't a quick process. It took it, I would say, about 6 or 7 weeks to even start to show it was doing anything, and I had to change the water regularly. but it's worth doing if you're interested. And I will plant this on eventually and put it in a pot, but I've not had time to do that yet. Might do it now the weather's getting nicer. So thank you for watching the first part. Why don't you watch part 2 and find out some more things you can do with plants. Okay, so this is something else that we can do with plants. Now, it was a bit of an experiment, this one. I'm going to be totally honest with you, it didn't work. So when I went to the supermarket on a shop, I picked up some flowers. Now, unfortunately, they did not have any carnations, but they had these white flowers. So I thought, you know what, I'll give it a go. But actually, carnations work the best, as suggested for this activity. Now, I've tried it and it hasn't worked with this type of flower, but it definitely works with a carnation. So what you can do with your white flower, and I put one in water to see and compare, but as you can see it didn't work. What you can do is when you get your flower from your bouquet of flowers, what you could try to do is just trim the end with some scissors, get some water and add some food colouring. So I added green food colouring to this. And then what I did was I've left my flower in there, and hopefully what should happen is my flower will take the water, and it'll go up the stem in the xylem, and it'll go up and up and up to the flower. And what hopefully should happen is actually the flower will change colour. So I've used green food dye, so it should have gone green. If I use blue, I might be able to make a beautiful blue flower. Ooh. And this will work on carnations. What you can even do is do multicoloured ones. So with your flower, you could, when you've got it, if it's just one flower, one carnation, what you can do with the stem very, very carefully is cut it into two. And if you get two halves of the stem, put a bit of tape around it, and then you can place it into, this isn't long enough, but place it into half into a colour and half just into water. The tape will stop it splitting too far, so that can help, and hopefully you'll get a different colour flower. So have a go and just experiment with it. Like I said, I experimented and it didn't work, unfortunately. And that's sometimes the case with things. I mean, one of them does look like it might have changed a little bit green, but it's not as impressive as I thought it might be. I'm going to leave it still for a few more days though and see. Thank you, give it a go. This is my final thing that you can do with flowers. So as you can see, I've got a beautiful bunch of flowers here, and it's got a whole different range of flowers in. I've also got some daffodils as well, which are also very beautiful flowers. These ones normally come out in the spring outside, so you'll see them there. I got mine from the supermarket, but it could be that you find them when you're out and about on your walk. So I've got some beautiful daffodils there and some nice flowers here. And what I thought we'd do today is a flower dissection. So dissection in science means that you cut something up. So we're going to cut up a flower and hopefully find the different parts. Amelia is desperate to do this. So, right, the best flowers are going to be, which ones are you going to pick? What do you think?
Tulips.
The tulips, yeah. So the tulips are quite good, yeah, perfect. So this is a tulip, and again, this is a nice spring flower. So tulips work really, really well for this investigation, but daffodils also work equally as well. Some of the other flowers, you can't always see the distinct parts on them. So it helps if you choose one that's going to be the best. Like I say, daffodil works well and a tulip works well. So why don't you just have a look now quickly at a diagram of a flower. Have a little look at the diagram of a flower, and flowers have lots of distinct parts, and you've got to be really careful with this. So I would advise, if you've got hay fever and a bit of an allergy to pollen, this is one that I perhaps wouldn't be doing. With it, I would advise that once you're finished at the end, that you do wash your hands, because pollen can irritate. So you don't want to be rubbing your eyes and touching your face. Yeah, so just be really, really careful. You might find you want a bit of a knife to do this. We've got a couple of knives. And what we're going to do is look at the parts. So I can see, first of all, on the outside that flowers have something beginning with a P? They have a think. What have they got beginning with a P?
Petals.
They've got petals. So why don't you start picking your petals off? So what I would do is I'll pick my petals off. Don't even need to use a knife for this. So Amelia's picking hers off. I'm just going to pick my petals off. Oh, good, doesn't matter. I'm picking my petals off. So Amelia, as you can see, has picked her petals off now. So she's got her petals. And what you might want to do is place them on a bit of paper and write the word petal, because that's a part of a flower. So you've got petal on there, and then you can see this bit's a bit different. We'll talk about that in a minute. So petals and flowers, what's the job of a flower? Does anyone know why? Because they're beautiful. But what is the job of a flower? What's that job? So have a think, pause for a minute and have a think. What's the job of a flower? Because it does have a really important job. So did you think? What is the job of a flower? Again, I'm going to ask my handy assistant here. What's the job of a flower?
It attracts bugs.
It does, but why would that be important, do you think? Do you know?
No.
It's okay if you don't. But flowers attract bugs and insects, pollinating insects. And it's really important. It helps with like things like the growth of fruit and stuff. So pollinating insects will be attracted to it like bees. And they will take the pollen, and that helps to produce a new plant maybe, or even fruit and stuff. So it is really, really important. So flowers have petals which are colourful, which these insects are attracted to. I'm going to take mine apart. It's got an inner tube. So oh gosh, I'm going to have to be careful here because it's got
colours.
pollen. Yeah. Ooh, there we go.
Oh.
So I took mine apart so you can see they're quite different. So we've got our first bit there, which is our petals, and then we've got a bit in the middle. So look really carefully in the middle and at the diagram. And when you've looked at the diagram, you can see it's got some parts at the edge which have the pollen on, and it's got some parts in the middle. So if you look at the diagram, hopefully you can see, I'll just make sure I'm colouring all parts. You can see, first of all, the parts with the pollen. I'm going to pick one off.
I know.
Can you pick one off? Oh, you've got one. It's called a stamen, and it is broken up into different parts. It's got pollen at the top, and it's a little like tube, and it's got the pollen just there. Yeah, have you found yours? Yeah. So you might want to place that down on a piece of paper. Now, there's a few of those on mine. I might want to pick them all off or not. And then, can you see? Oh, what is that? Do you know?
Yeah.
What is that?
Stigma.
Yeah, it is, yeah. Well done. So you've got the bit.
There's pollen on it.
Yeah, there might be pollen on it. So just be really, really careful. And the next bit in the middle, now it's split into 3 parts, but we're only just going to look at the big part. So the big part's called a carpel, but the carpel's split into 3 different bits. And what happens to that is the pollen goes on the top of it, and the pollen then grows down, and it grows to here, goes down to the bottom, and then it can go to the ovary at the bottom. So that's how we end up with seeds and stuff. It will end up being some fertilisation, and then it will create seeds.
I think.
You ripped it off, it doesn't matter, sweetheart. Yeah, I've separated mine out a bit too much. Should be more like that, shouldn't it? But I just snapped it. So maybe stick that down. Now it does have a stem, you can see as well. You might even have other bits on there too that you can pick apart. Mine had something, did yours? Oh yeah, yours, what other part did yours have?
Leaves.
Yours had leaves, so you'd be able to lay the leaves out. It just depends what flower you've chosen. And the important bit now is that I wash my hands, because I've now got pollen on my hands and I don't want it to get anywhere. So look at that diagram again. Can you find, by taking apart your flower, your distinct parts? So the stamen. I've lost mine. Have you got yours?
This is it.
No,
No,
it's
it's
the
this.
other bit. I've lost mine.
It's this, isn't it?
Oh, there mine are. There we go. So the stamen, which has the pollen on. Can you find the carpel, which mine should look like that. Just look like that. Just came apart. Can you find the petals? And can you find the stem? Ooh, put mine back in. Took apart. Put it back in. Can you find that? Give it a go.
All the leaves.
All the leaves, yeah. If you've used a tulip. So give it a go, guys. And I'll see you all soon. Bye.